White. Wide open, Torrence! Oh, baby! Touchdown! How do you leave the best receiver in the NAIA that wide open?
You show, and that's what we do! Cat!
You're proud of me?
And it's caught! Oh my goodness! Troy Torrence comes down with it!
Welcome all to Bankroll Blitz Wild Card Edition. We made it through the regular season unscathed. I think the story of our show this year, it was you, Troy, climbing out of a giant hole after 4 weeks, getting yourself up double-digit units at the end of the season. It was excellent work, my friend. And now the playoffs await. We got Bet L1L, Dennis Garcia in the house, ready to get to work. Troy, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm going to retweet this real quick. Man, sure. I'm doing good, dude. What an incredible season. Like, this is probably one of the most, when I look back at it and I look at my ROI, I look at my record, I look at all the plays I made throughout the season, to be up double-digit units after what we've been through is just, I feel very proud, to be honest. And my CLV this season, I mean, year over year, my CLV has increased. I'm up. I mean, Jimmy, you could do the work. I'm sure I'm not lying when I give you this number. 62% of my plays I've had CLV on, which I think is pretty good, you know, relative to where I've been in the past. And last year, I was absolutely awful in the playoffs. So let's inverse it. Let's flip the script. Let's go crazy in the playoffs. Dude, football is the best sport to bet on. It's truly a game of chess. You really get to experience the market and how it fluctuates. It's a week-long process, and the liquidity in the market's insane. So it helps my process immensely. Man, I'm ready to get after it.
It's hard for me to keep bets at 1 unit. I had to tell myself today, you know, this is just like the regular season. I know you're more excited about it. Not just speaking to myself. Like, I know I'm more excited, all that, but it doesn't mean we got to get out of our shoes and start hammering spots unless there's spots to be hammered. Dougie Wise in the house, wager detective joining us. Great to see you guys. And a lot of work to do. We both had low volume last week, so not much. I think our hesitation hurt us last week as well. But low volume last week. But my futures came in, and it was almost huge. New England worst record almost came through, but didn't. But still, a 6-4 plus 3.05 units on my regular season futures. A Tampa Bay over 7.5. A laugh out loud bet Minnesota under 6.5 wins. Plus 130 that lost badly. A New England under 4.5 wins cashed. New England worst record lost. Detroit over 10.5 wins cashed. Detroit win the division plus 130 cashed. Indianapolis to make the playoffs lost. Travis Kelce under 815.5 receiving yards, spite bet cashed. San Francisco win the division was, made that during the year, lost. And then the Baltimore to win the division, shout out to Dan Kelly, cashed a plus 175. It was a 3-5 week for me. Losing the Falcons double result was ugly. Everything else I can stand by. But the one thing I can't stand by is I talked it out. I said out loud how I was in this situation before on week 18s where I bet against a home team that is resting a bunch of their starters. The home teams step up in that situation. It's the road teams that fall apart, and I still walked into that with the Giants plus 2.5, which was a mistake. But overall, I feel good. I feel great about this season. I still think I was a little too hesitant last week, and it kind of hurt me. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to rock. I'm excited for the playoffs. We got Nuke Worker in the house, plus money ready to get to work. Harold Williams and Lamont Williams. Great to see all of you guys here. Are you ready to get to work for these 6 playoff games that we are about to attack?
Let's do it, Jimmy.
Let's roll. We start Saturday, January 11th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, the AFC wildcard playoffs between the LA Chargers, 11-6, 6-3 on the road, the Houston Texans, 10-7, 5-3 at home. We're at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. Let's get into the line history here in the cash flow and then set this up for Troy Torrence. First off, at the line at 2.5, a lot of people are sitting here saying, oh, this line's moved towards the Chargers. The Chargers are 3s now. It's not the case. At the sharpest books that I track, this has moved 4 cents in favor of the Texans. Plus 2.5 at plus 106. Now plus 2.5 at plus 102. 2 4-cent move towards the Texans. Now, I mean, it changes depending on what book you look at, but this is the book I'm looking at. Then we have the total here. This total is sitting at 42.5. And interestingly enough, Troy, 35 minutes ago, we had a 5-cent move to the over. I know that you have moved on this total. You've done a lot of great work. You've moved on a lot of these games, and you've got CLV all over the place. I was very hesitant. This was a spot that made a ton of sense to me. You got a spectacular number on the under, and you've hammered this game heavy, and I'll let you talk about what you were on. But I was looking at this under all day. I've been looking at this under for a few days, and have not moved on it. This is not one of the moves I've made. From a cash flow situation, 68% of tickets, 65% of cash is on the Chargers. On the total, 82% of tickets, 76% cash on the over. We see that in playoff indoor football games. Public always expects points, and we'll get into that a little bit more here shortly. Let's talk about the Chargers first and foremost. Shout out to T. Moss joining us. Great to see you. Jared TG, Thomas Maggio. For these Chargers, their passing offense 19th in the league, 213.5 yards per game. Rushing offense 17th, 110.7. Red zone offense 18th at 56%. Third down offense 11th at 40.3%. We watched this offense improve as the season went on. Pass defense 7th, 206.9. It's a very highly rated secondary. We'll get into some of those stats here shortly. Rush defense, they're 14th in the league, allowing 117.5 yards per game. Red zone defense is number 1 in the league. They allow touchdowns 45% of the time. And their third down defense is 5th. They allow first downs just 35.7% of the time. And they ranked 6th this year with 2.7 sacks per game. Let's set this one up. But first, let's give a shout out to our guy, Nunya, in the house, our Cappers contest champion. Nunya, excellent work. You won it comfortably in the end. You deserve all of the cash that you will receive. Congratulations, Nunya. And don't forget, our confidence pool, our NFL confidence pool is set up right now. Our video explaining how it works will be coming out here in the morning. But our NFL confidence pool, second annual confidence pool, is in play. And you're able to sign up now. Let's roll here. The Chargers finished off their impressive regular season by handling the Raiders easily 34-20 in Vegas for their third straight victory. They outgained the Raiders 473 to 264, 10 more first downs than them. Herbert looked excellent, 28-36 for 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also ran 4 times for 42 yards. Quentin Johnston had his career day. We've been waiting for a sign of why he was such a high draft pick. We've been waiting for a sign from them, and we got it. Career high in receptions with 13 and yards with 186. If he can deliver like that, what an opportunity for these Chargers, because we know what Ladd McConkey does. Delivers. This man just delivers. Caught another 5 passes for 9 yards, 10th straight game with at least 50 yards. That breaks the rookie record held by Odell Beckham in 2014. Also, 42 receptions, 1,149 yards, Chargers rookie records. J.K. Dobbins continues to look completely healthy after sustaining the MCL sprain in week 12. 18 carries for 63 yards. Now he has 37 carries, and he's run for 139 yards and a touchdown in 2 games since returning from the injury. 8 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down, 3 of 6 in the red zone. The defense held the Raiders in check throughout. Held the Raiders at 2 of 9 on 3rd down, 1 of 2 in the red zone. The pass rush was quiet, 0 sacks, but they still got 5 quarterback hits. And Dan Henley had an interception. So Gus Edwards did not play. He may not be available this week. Haskins and Vidal obviously aren't trusted enough by the brain trust because they have signed Zeke Elliott. So Zeke Elliott has been signed. We're not sure how much run Zeke will get, but he's got a lot to prove right now. Josh Palmer did not play with a foot injury. He may not be able to go on Saturday. If he doesn't, we know behind McConkey and Johnston will be DJ Shark and Darius Davis. The issues on the offensive line. Rashawn Slater was scratched after the pregame warmups, but he's not on the injury report. So it's not there. So Rashawn Slater is going to be there. It's Trey Pipkins, their guard. He left early in the 3rd quarter. He's questionable to play. Despite these injuries, great pass protection for Herbert. 3 pressures, just 3 pressures on 38 dropbacks. So they moved Joe Alt to the left side. Now we don't need to worry about Slater missing extended time. So we expect Alt to move back to the right side for this. Pipkins, though, is important. They need him at right tackle. Jemry Salyer also can play there. You put him in the right guard. And that's so important with this Texans team, Troy, because they have 2 of the top 10 pass rushers in the league. If you go according to ESPN pass rush win rate, Danielle Hunter leads all pass rushers with a PRWR of 26%, and Will Anderson 7th at 22%. Here's the uncomfort, and there's going to be good stats and bad stats for all these teams. The Chargers are playing their third consecutive road game. Since 2003, teams who are on the third game of any road trip are 45-71 straight up. They are 5-12 straight up over the last 3 seasons. When this third straight road game is played in the playoffs, that team is 11-27 straight up, and it's an issue. It's an issue. So Herbert in his career is 14-9 against the spread as a road favorite, and he's 7-1 in his last 8 games as a road favorite. So there's some good and there's some bad. Before I break down the Texans, let's get right to work on your thoughts on the LA Chargers and your action in this game. Troy, take it away.
So the Chargers are a team that has grown on me. If you remember early in the season, my sentiment was really negative towards this team. And I really wanted to be on the Chargers in this spot. But seeing this number, it just seems way too inflated given the recent history, so I had to double take because I really was planning on betting the Chargers. If you remember the show from last week, I had reservations to make this bet as soon as it dropped, but seeing it drop at 2.5, almost a 3, it was a little bit too big for my taste. But Herbert, he's an all-star caliber player. We knew he was capable of being one. Harbaugh's gotten him there. And obviously the weapons on offense have grown around him with McConkey, who's the ultimate man beater. Johnston, who's starting to become the deep threat we all know he can be. And he knows how to use his weapons, running backs out of the backfield, tight end, etc. The young offensive line, which has been extremely important to this team and competent all season long. Now, everyone has their lapses eventually, but all in all, this has been a really good offense. But when you look at what DG's calling out in the chat, what have they done versus quality opponents? They've really only played 2 teams in the top 10 defenses with Kansas City and the Steelers. And in those games, they scored 17, 10, and 10. They did put up 23 against the Ravens, but that was back when the Ravens were their defense was waffling a little bit. It didn't know, trying to make the changes they did, moving Kyle Hamilton to safety and yada, yada, yada. And it's come a long way since then. The Broncos, a lot of people consider this defense to be extremely good. I don't really think they are, but they did put up some points against them. I just, I have my skepticism about this team's ability to put up points versus a quality defense. And I kind of have a lot to say on the Texans side of things, but Harbaugh has been the biggest difference to this team this year. Obviously, from an incompetent to an extremely competent coach, has taken this team to the next level. And I think that we're going to continue to see this team grow. But is this their spot here, Jim? That's my question.
And it's a valid question. And we'll roll into the Texans here right now because last week I was almost certain that I was going to be on the Chargers. And it could still happen. Dennis Garcia says the Chargers' last 5 weeks offense didn't work against Kansas City, Atlanta, or Tampa Bay. They beat up New England and the lifeless Raiders to end the year. He does not believe in this offense. Let's talk about the Texans. These Texans, 21st passing offense, 207.4 yards per game. Rushing offense, 15th at 112.3. Red zone offense being a problem all year, 26th. 49.1% of the time they score touchdowns. Their third down offense is 20th, 37.7%. It's fair to say that we expected this offense to be better. Also, losing Stephon Diggs and then later Tank Dell clearly didn't help. And their offenses looked very pedestrian, very mediocre. Pass defense, 6th in the league at 201 yards per game. It shocks me, Troy, that this pass defense is still putting up very good numbers despite not having Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward. It shocks me that they're still putting up big numbers. In fact, I almost don't believe them. But it's a mistake when you don't believe numbers.
You know why, though? You know why? Because they're relieved by a great defensive line in a pass rush.
Very important point because this is a hell of a pass rush. And we've talked about that a little bit. We'll talk about it a little more. Pass defense, 6th. Rush defense, 11th, allowing 114 yards per game. Red zone defense, 27th. It's been an issue all year. They allow touchdowns 63.6% of the time. Their third down defense is 7th. They allow conversions 35.9% of the time, and they're fourth in the league, getting 2.9 sacks per game. The Texans bounced back from their ugly 31-2 home loss to the Ravens in Week 17 by defeating the Titans 23-14 in Nashville to snap their 2-game losing streak. Thank God I got on that first half of plus a half. I should have just taken the first half money line plus 110, but I should have gotten there. I don't know why. I even said it on our show that they had to change the aura around the team. They had to come in and play well, and Stroud did that on that first drive. 6 for 6, leaves the game. But
I moved on that. I moved on that first half as well after listening to Marley, who I thought had a great breakdown, and I did not post it. I'm sure as hell meant to post it, but I didn't get it up in time. But yeah, it was
it's funny because I was looking at your action. I thought you had a little more than that because I knew that you had gone with me in that one. But so this offense had scored less than 20 points in 3 straight games before they put up 23 in Nashville. Stroud played 11 plays, 6 for 6 for 50 yards and a touchdown. Joe Mixon had 5 carries on that drive, 5 carries for 23 yards, and his day was done. Davis Mills finished his rest of the game 12 of 22 for 128 yards. Damian Pierce had his first good game. He was a second-round pick that I had so much faith in. He had a great rookie season, and then he's disappeared since then. Maybe he gets some confidence after running 19 times for 176 yards and a touchdown. But the problem is that against playoff-type competition, against good pass rushes, this Texans offensive line does not give Stroud enough time to make plays. The Texans offensive line is a serious problem. Now, their defense was strong throughout. They held the Titans to 5-15 on third down, 0-2 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. Houston 6th in DVOA versus number 1 wide receivers. That surprised me. They're 12th versus number 2 wide receivers, and they're 4th versus tight ends. The offense is the single weakest offense in these playoffs. 21st in EPA per play. We talked about taking Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell off of the team because what that does is allows the secondary to key in on Nico Collins. A Pro Football Focus grades the Chargers as the 4th ranked coverage unit in the league. It's hard to expect the Texans to do much through the air against the Chargers. Now, here's another interesting point. They're both playing on short rest. 6 days off from Sunday to Saturday. Under DeMeco Ryans, the Texans have played 5 games on short rest. They're 1-4 straight up. This season, they're 0-4, both straight up and against the spread in that spot. On the other side, Harbaugh is 3-0 this year on short rest, both straight up and against the spread. If this comes down to a coaching situation, it's hard not to expect the Chargers to have an advantage. And then from your under situation, Texans home unders are 7-1 this year. 7-1. But since 2003, indoor playoff games are 66% to the over.
Oh, yeah.
One final stat, though, on this, when I brought up that third consecutive road game for the Chargers. In the last 19 years, in the playoffs, teams on short rest have never been over 500 in the last 19 seasons.
Wait, say it again. Teams on short rest?
On short rest in the last 19 years.
In the playoffs.
In the playoffs. They've never gone over 500. There's never been a season in the last 19 years where there's been more wins than losses with teams on short rest. Take it away for us, Troy. The Houston Texans.
The Texans, what a letdown of a season it was for them. Despite winning the division, they had much bigger aspirations. I mean, you look at their resume right now, their body of work. They have only 1 win against a winning team, and it was the Bills in Week 5, where they actually closed as favorites. And you talked about all the important pieces they're missing with Stephon Diggs, with Tank Dell, Jimmy Ward, and Petre, both their safeties, who I thought were going to be key for this defense. Now, the thing that's redeeming quality of the defensive line is taking a lot of pressure off of them. But you look at Stroud; he's had terrible numbers relative to last year, just year over year. Passer rating down, TD to interception ratio is down, pressure to sack rate. All those metrics are down year over year, and those are very important. And it's mostly because of this offensive line. 21st in pass block, 26th in run block. I talked about Slowick, who has bad play design. I talk about my disgust with the route tree that we continue to see. Just the general scheme itself seems to be flawed. But the redeeming quality is this defense because they still have, despite missing 2 safeties, they have 2 lockdown corners in the secondary. They have a psychopath in the middle with Al-Shaair, who I think is one of the best linebackers, despite what his PFF grade might say. 2 fantastic pass rushers. You named them, Anderson and Hunter. I mean, this is the best pass rush in the NFL, and that's not me giving you the net numbers. Or it's not me. That's not based on my eye or my look on film. It's based on, pass block win rate. Number 1 in the NFL and by a wide margin. And they're second actually in run stop win rate. So that defensive front is with Al-Shaair in the backer, in the linebackers, is making a huge difference. It's just really hard to back this team in its current state. I think DG made some compelling arguments that would say to back the Texans. I think the number at 3, it would be hard to pass on the Texans because, you know what, like, I don't want to talk about a side and give an opinion on a side as much because I'm on this under. 2 defenses that I believe in, top 7 in third down conversion rate, both of these teams. 2 offenses that are 25th or lower in seconds per play. These are slow and controlled offenses. A market that's moving towards the under despite the action on the over. Now we're seeing only action on the over the past few, actually all season long, for about a half a year right now on the numbers that I'm pulling from. We're seeing all public sentiment and action on the overs. And yet a home dog, a line moving towards the under, which has historically resulted in unders. Now, I know playoff games indoors in the wild card round over the past few years have gone over. But God damn it, I love this under. I posted it at 43.5 minus 115. I didn't post. I did buy up to a 43 as well at minus 120. And the metrics that I have, from the database, home team price between 2.5 and 3 with a line move to the under, 30 and 11 to the under. And it gets even better when the total is less than 44. But last year in the wild card, not just last year, in the past 2 seasons in the wild card round, 1-1 to the under. And the over in that sample was the Chargers against the Jaguars in 2023, where that miraculous comeback and that Chargers just fell apart. But yeah, I'm on the under. If I had to play a side, I'm I'm waffling way too much to give a true opinion. But I love the matchups for the defenses. I think we're going to see more man-to-man. So someone was talking about McConkey props. I think McConkey's props are definitely live. I think we're going to see man-to-man out of the Texans.
It's a phenomenal job getting the 43.5. Wager Detective moving on the Chargers. Nutflush says, if you like the under, the public will continue to come in on the over. This is the very first sign of buyback on the over. This has only been moving to the under until this 5-cent move that happened 50 minutes ago now at 7:33 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, January 7th. So look, I could understand moving on the Chargers. I had expected to move on the Chargers. Coin in the house says home dogs in the wild card round are 6-4 straight up and 8-2 against the spread since 2016. Houston and the Rams fit this. So I need to sit with this game for longer. I just don't. The under is appealing, and I came very close to moving on today. And I've been interested in the Chargers, since the matchup was announced, and haven't moved on yet. And I said if this was the matchup, I would be on the Chargers. And yet, I still have not moved on them. Troy is on the under 43.5, and he's on the under 43. What was the juice on those 2 spots?
43.5 was minus 115, and that's the only one that I made official so far.
Okay. All right. That is the AFC wild card Chargers Texans. We move on. Game 2 on today's show, 8 p.m. Eastern, the AFC wildcard playoffs between the Pittsburgh Steelers 10-7, 5-4 on the road at the Baltimore Ravens 12-5, 6-2 at home at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. 31 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 9-mile-per-hour winds. Let's get into the line history here for this one. This total is 43.5 or 44. This opened up at 46.5. This got all the way down to 43 even vig yesterday at noon. Since then, there's been a move back to the over. 12-cent move back to the over, and that's why you see the 44s or 43.5s, depending on where you're shopping. From a line spread perspective, we have 9.5 or 10. At the 10 number, which is where this opened with the Steelers plus 10 at minus 123. Since then, there's been 7 cents of movement towards the Ravens at the 10. And you see some, despite that, it was always it was heavily juiced towards Steelers at 10. Most of the time, we've seen 9.5s on the board. When we get to the cash flow, we have 75% of the tickets on the over, but just 40% of the cash. It's clear that sharp money has driven this towards the under. 53% of tickets, 53% cash on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers' passing offense is 27th in the league with 192 yards per game, while the rushing offense is 11th at 127.4. The red zone offense has been a problem all year. It's 29th in the league, scoring touchdowns 48.2% of the time, while their third down offense is just 15th, converting 39.5% of the time. Passing defense-wise, they've allowed a lot of yards this year. 228 yards per game. That's 25th in the NFL. Their rush defense has been strong, 98.7 yards per game allowed. That's good for 6th in the NFL. Their red zone defense is 13th. They're allowing touchdowns 54.1% of the time, while their third down defense is 2nd, allowing conversions just 35.3% of the time. And for sacks, they are 16th with 2.4 per game. The Steelers enter the playoffs off 4 straight losses. On week 18, they fell 19-17 at home to the Bengals. The Steelers, it's interesting the way how you phrase it or how you look at it. Dennis Garcia here is on Pittsburgh plus 10.5 and Pittsburgh money line. Plus 10 and Pittsburgh money line. He says Wilson fumbling the ball at the 1 changed the whole game last time. And it may have, but they were outgained 314-193. They were fortunate to be in it at the end. Russell Wilson was 17 of 31 for 148 yards and a touchdown. Freiermuth led receivers with 8 catches for 85 yards. And George Pickens had 1 catch for 0 yards on 6 targets. The Steelers were 4-14 on 3rd and 4th down, but they went 2 of 2 in the red zone, something we've rarely seen them do. They've scored 17 points or less in 4 straight games. They're just the 4th team to enter the playoffs having scored 17 points or less in 4 straight games. The 3 previous teams in this situation all lost outright. And none of those 3 teams scored over 17 points in the football game, in the playoff game.
When's the last time the Steelers have scored more than 17 points? You got to go back 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, it's 4 straight. They've gone under 17 or less. So got to go back 5 weeks. Pass rush, that's also the last time they won. Pass rush was strong, 4 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. They held the Bengals to 5 of 14 on 3rd and 4th down and 1 of 4 in the red zone. Beanie Bishop Jr. had an interception. There's going to be talk all week long about Mike Tomlin's success as an underdog. We're going to hear that all week long. But let's break it down a little further. And we're going to keep doing this system. Troy, I don't want to talk for too long off the top, so I'm just going to, after the first team, hand it over to you, unlike what we did in the regular season. Since Mike Tomlin became the head coach of the Steelers in 2007, the Steelers are 38-14-2 against the spread as a dog in the AFC North. They are 13-3-2 against the spread versus the Baltimore Ravens. And the example of that is Dennis Garcia saying, I'm trusting the series history with the Steelers at plus 10. But those numbers change when he's a big dog. This 9.5-point spread's the biggest dog line of his career against the Ravens. Under Tomlin, the Steelers are 3-14 straight up and 7-9-1 against the spread as an underdog of 7 points or more. They've been a dog of 8 points or more in Tomlin's career 9 times, and they've won 1 of those football games.
Were any of those in the playoffs? Do you have any of that?
I don't, but
I got some of it, but I should have added another layer.
As an underdog of 4 points or more versus the Ravens, and this goes back to Dennis's bullishness, the Steelers are 8-1 against the spread. They are 6-1 against the spread as a dog of more than 3 versus the Ravens. They just, it's a good spot for them. Then you have this Super Bowl winning quarterback situation. The Super Bowl winning quarterback situation here as an underdog in the playoffs only applies to Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford. Super Bowl winning quarterbacks are 61, 24, and 2 against the spread as an underdog in the playoffs. That's a 72% cash rate. They're 14 and 4 against the spread since the 2018 playoffs. Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Take it away, Troy. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I feel like I've had this Steelers team solved since Russ took over quarterback. I mean, this has definitely been my most profitable team to bet on and against all season long. And now we get Tomlin versus the Ravens for yet a third time. And, you know, they've been great as a dog, this Tomlin and the Steelers. They definitely have been against this Ravens team, but not in the playoffs, especially when you look at spreads 3 or more. Tomlin has never covered a spread in his career as a dog of 3 or more in the playoffs. And you guys know my sentiment towards the Steelers team. I mean, not only have I had this Steelers team solved since Russ became the quarterback, but these defensive coordinators have this offense solved because Russell Wilson is a one-trick pony. He has one trick up his sleeve, an ace in the sleeve. It's a deep ball. It's a moon ball, which is not sustainable offense. You know, Russell Wilson's completion percentage, yards per attempted passer rating to the left side of the field, and that's pretty much a key indicator of what a quarterback can do. Because throwing it to the right side of the field is much more comfortable than a closed shoulder throw to the left side of the field. You definitely are more susceptible doing that, and you only see great quarterbacks throwing to the left side of the field efficiently. Well, this guy has a 20% completion rate to the intermediate left side of the field. He's bottom 3 in both the short, any distance that's not the deep ball. This guy is way, way below average. And you look on film, it's very clear to me what you got to do to beat this offense and to just put him away. You press George Pickens and you put a bracket with the safety over the top. This guy does not want to play football when you do that. Go watch some of the film on Pickens and what happens when he loses on a press coverage, which he does quite frequently because they know they have help over the top. He gives up on the route. There was a play against the Chiefs when Russell Wilson threw that pick over the middle of the field. You know why he threw that pick? It was because fucking Pickens gave up on the play. He got jammed out of the gate, didn't want to finish his route, so he didn't continue up the field, which he's supposed to press, put pressure on the safety because they were running seams. He didn't do it. He gave up because he lost, and that's the kind of sentiment that's who Pickens is. Yes, you get some big flashy plays, but you also get terrible ball security. You get a guy who's going to give up on plays quite frequently and make stupid decisions with the ball when he gets it in his hands. That's Pickens. He gets frustrated way too easily. And I talked about the third down EPA with the Steelers, and I hammered it home for weeks now at this point. If you take away their third down EPA, this is one of the worst offenses in the NFL, especially when you look at third and short EPA, 4 yards or less. It's crazy what their average yards per attempt was or per play was in that situation leading into week 16. And now it's fallen off the charts because guess what? This team has been solved. Baltimore is another team that could defend they could defend with 7 players in the box. They're one of the rare teams that could do that. I think Roquan, a couple of things the defensive line does, not get too far up the field, which also helps in the run game and allows Roquan to make an easy read and keep blockers off of them. They could defend with 7 in the box, which means that they should be able to have significant help over the top to defend against the deep balls on the sidelines. And this defense is solid, right? The Steelers' defense is definitely solid, and they've been solid against this Ravens team for years now. And definitely this season, I mean, they've been solid relative to what, yards per play compared to what the Ravens do versus teams not named Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But at the same time, I just do not see the Steelers being able to put up points because the Ravens are going to be able to put up points against the Steelers defense. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. I hear, and I guess that's where I'll stop because I'm not going to get into the Ravens. But that's my thought process on the Steelers.
Well, also you, and we'll get into this here as soon as I break down the Ravens, have a parlay that I would have bet, but I didn't know if you had announced it yet. And I wanted you just to announce it because I didn't, it's a parlay that I want to bet as well. And I might bet more than a unit on it.
And you know what, Jimmy? With you. You called it out. You talked about teaser records and Pub Hub, NFL Pub Hub, and even my teaser record this year is terrible. But the money line parlay, not the same. Not the same. Definitely way higher ROI.
And same with NFL Pub Hub. Moneyline parlays have a positive ROI when the teasers have the worst ROI of any bet over the 4 years that we've had NFL Pub Hub.
4 years. Damn, I didn't know. I thought it was just this year.
No, every year. Let's go into the Ravens. Passing offense, 7th in the league, 237.4 yards per game. Rushing offense, 1st, 187.6 yards per game. Red zone offense, 1st. Score touchdown 74.2% of the time. Third down offense, 3rd, 48.2% of the time they convert. Passing defense, 31st. Look, it's been a problem all year. They allowed 244.1 yards per game through the air. If you look at this team from a statistical standpoint, you're like, why are they not 14-3? Why are they not 15-2? I think the amount of yards they've allowed through the air is part of the problem. Their third down defense is also part of the problem. 18th, they allow conversions 39.8% of the time. The red zone defense is 12th. They allow touchdowns 54% of the time. And again, their rush defense is the best in the league. They allow just 80.1 yards per game on the ground, and they're second in the league with 3.2 sacks per game. Shout out to my guy Jermaine, Lil Domo, Flea Mathis. Great to see you guys. Vincent Hawkins. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Ravens coming off their 4th straight win, an easy 35-10 home victory over the Browns. Outgained the Browns 437-230. Lamar 16-32 for 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also ran 9 times for 63 yards. The first quarterback in NFL history to reach 4,000 yards, to throw for 40 touchdown passes, and 4 or fewer interceptions. Finished the season with 915 yards rushing. So he's the first quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards and rush for at least 800. His passer rating of 119.6 almost broke the single season record held by Aaron Rodgers of 122.5. The biggest concern coming out of the game is the health of Pro Bowl receiver Zay Flowers, who left in the second quarter with a right knee injury. He didn't practice today. Yesterday, Harbaugh wouldn't confirm that he was dealing with a sprain. He said that he avoided a season-ending injury and he's considered day-to-day. Flowers will have 2 more opportunities to practice this week, but we all expect him to be given a injury designation coming into the game. And let's talk about Flowers on the field and how important he is to this team. Now, we've seen Mark Andrews step up late in the year, but this season, Flowers has 24.1% of the Ravens' target share, 10% higher than Mark Andrews, who's second. So he also has 25.3% of the team's receiving yards. That's more than 7% higher than Rashad Bateman. Bateman caught 5 passes for 76 yards and a touchdown against the Browns. Andrews caught 4 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry ran 20 times for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. The offense was 7 of 14 on 3rd down and 3 of 4 in the red zone. The defense was strong throughout. Held the Browns to 4 of 14 on 3rd and 4th down, 1 of 3 in the red zone. The pass rush had 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. Wiggins and Pierce each had interceptions. So the underdog is 25-9-3 against the spread when Mike Tomlin faces John Harbaugh. 25-9-3 against the spread when Tomlin faces John Harbaugh. But just 1-2 against the spread when they face each other in the postseason. Take it away, Troy, the Baltimore Ravens.
So last week, I went official with the Ravens to win the AFC. And a lot, just like I say with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think that this team has all the pieces to be a Super Bowl champion. To put it to you a little more straight, like when you go through the advanced metrics and you start, benchmarking, comparing teams, I think that this team grades out as the best team in the NFL by quite a wide margin. When you look at down-to-down football, yards per attempt, EPA per play, it's hard to argue that. And trust me, I want to. I have futures on the Eagles and the Lions to win the Super Bowl, but now I added this Ravens to win the AFC because I feel very confident in this team making a push. They have the sour taste in their mouth from last year and losing to OKC, to Kansas City, and I know that left a sour taste in their mouth. And this team has the MVP at quarterback. This is Lamar's best season of his career by a wide margin. Best TD to interception ratio, 41-4. Completion percentage, highest of his career. Yards per attempt, highest of his career. The best pressure to sack rate of his career. And like twice as low as the turnover worthy play percentage is. You basically cut his previous best season in half, and that's what it is this season, like 1.4%. It's insane. And now you give him King Henry to delegate some of that load, which, he's definitely a great running back, but he's not what he used to be, but still great running back, delegate some of the load. And you got an offensive line who's third in both pass block and run block win rate. They grade out top 10 in pass blocking per PFF. People are concerned about Flowers and what his situation is. And I was thinking to myself, like, hey, no Flowers, I don't think that's going to be a big problem. What could the Ravens do to offset some of that, missing one of their best receivers? You run 12 personnel. You put Likely on the field. You put Andrews on the field. Bateman's starting to develop into a true number 2 in the NFL. I think they still have enough options. And Andrews actually profiles as the best receiver on the team against both man and zone. He's got the highest grade. You see him consistently win versus man. You see him find the right spots for his zone. And you could tell Lamar Jackson trusts the shit out of him. And the defense, which that's been the biggest, flaw with this team all season long. But they've been surging towards the end of the season. Kyle Hamilton, moving him to safety made all the difference in the world, apparently, and how they use him. I mean, he's the jack of all trades. He could do everything you could ask a defender to do. And then, you believe in Roquan Smith, Kyle Van Noy. They got pieces. Even more in the secondary, to complement Kyle Hamilton. I think the Steelers were extremely lucky to win the first matchup. They got outgained in that first matchup when they lost by 2 yards per play, or they outgained the Steelers by 2 yards per play. Obviously, it was the 2 fumbles and the 2 missed field goals that led to that result. And I think they're going to need to be every bit as lucky to win and cover this game. Maybe they do get some voodoo muffed punts. I don't know if they're, Tomlin's got a magic spell. He's sprinkling on the sideline. I don't know what the hell goes on and how they cover these spreads sometimes. But they're not winning this ball game, in my opinion. I know what the history says, and I know that this number is telling me that the Ravens are taking the freaking Steelers to Smack City. Tomlin's going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat, which is, buried deep inside fucking his ass. Like, I don't think it can happen. And like I said, I'm leaning towards Baltimore. I have a money line parlay open, the one Jimmy was alluding to. It is the Ravens Eagles money line parlay at -135.
And now that you've announced it, have you put that on Twitter yet?
I have not.
Okay.
But you probably get a better line now.
I'm going to be interested in it. One of the interesting things, and I didn't even write it down, but it's, you talked about the voodoo or what could happen is teams that don't have a turnover in the final game of the regular season tend to have them at least one at an extremely high rate in the first playoff game. The Ravens didn't have a turnover against the Browns. I don't put too much care into that, but it's probably worth saying out loud when we talk about what could bring the Steelers a cover. There's not enough that correlates for me to have action on this game. If this total was at 46.5 right now, I'd bet the under. I missed it. Will it climb back up? If it does, it looks like it's climbing up a little bit. If it climbs back up, I could go on, hit it again. But your Ravens Eagles moneyline parlay, I mean, that's right in the wheelhouse for me. And it's a spot where I could cover the extra vig by just betting more on it. So Troy on a Ravens Eagles moneyline parlay. And, I kind of like this game to go under, but I don't trust either defense like I have in the past. And I don't want a vividness bias of these two teams playing each other. The lower scoring games get in my head here. But we just saw a similar type of game in the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati spot. But the Ravens are a very different team than the Bengals. All right. Nuke Walker has locked in Baltimore -8.5. Harold Williams says the Ravens by 13-17. Of course, we talked about Dennis Garcia being on the other side of that one. Let's roll on to Saturday action. Sunday action. Roll on to Sunday, January 12th. We start at 1 p.m. Eastern, the AFC wildcard playoffs, and this is the only side that I have bet so far. I have bet the Denver Broncos plus 8.5, minus 109. I could have sent it into minus 110, but I'm running pretty nice right now in the account that I bet it at, so I just sent it in at 109. Broncos are 10-7, 4-5 on the road. Bills 13-4, 8-0 at home. We're at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. 29 Fahrenheit, snow showers, 11 mile per hour winds. Let's get into the line history here. The 8.5 is right because I just bet it. It's right where I got it. 8.5 at minus 109, which was the opener. This has gone down to 8.5 at minus 106. It's gone up to 8.5 minus 110, but it's right back at 8.5 minus 109. So it's slightly juiced towards the Broncos. On the total here, we have a 47. It's minus 108 to the under. I have interest in the under, but just interest right now. I wasn't close to betting it. I have some interest in it. Cash flow wise here, 47% of the tickets and 57% of the cash are on the Denver Broncos. It's a coin flippy market, which is why this line isn't moving. On a total scenario, though, 82% of the tickets and 89% of the cash are on the over. And I'm not. I would be more interested in the under at this point. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Passing offense, 20th in league, 212.4 yards per game. Bo Nix. I mean, hard not to be a fan of him from how he's developed this year in front of our eyes. Rushing offense, 16th, 112.2 yards per game. It's a rush by committee. There's not one running back you can trust, but it seems like one running back steps up each game. Red zone offense is 7th. They score touchdowns 62.5% of the time. Their third down offense is 13th. They convert 39.6% of the time. Overall, the offense is much better than I expected. And overall, the defense is much better than I expected. The pass rush, leading the league with 3.7 sacks per game. I know we talked about the Texans being the number one pass rush in the league. I think the Broncos would have something to say about that. Pass defense is 19th, 220.7 yards per game. They allowed the rush defense 3rd. They only allowed 96.4 yards per game on the ground. Red zone defense 3rd. They allow touchdowns just 46.9% of the time. And their third down defense is 11th. They allow conversions 37.3% of the time. They come in off a 38-0 victory at home over, Chiefs squad playing mostly backups. They're returning to the postseason for the first time since winning the Super Bowl 50, 2016. They outgained the Chiefs 479-98. I don't think we should put too much emphasis into that, but Bo Nix was spectacular, absolutely spectacular. 26-29 for 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He also ran 7 times for 47 yards. He set franchise records for completion percentage and most completions to start a game. 4 touchdown passes, gave him 29 for the season, second most by a rookie in NFL history, behind only Justin Herbert's 31 in 2020. The Broncos ran 43 times for 158 yards and a touchdown. Cortland Sutton caught 5 for 98 and a touchdown. Offense was 12 of 16 on 3rd and 4th down, 4 or 5 in the red zone. Pass rush has been dominant all year. Dominant, maybe dynamite. Let's use a different term for it, but being very good. Sunday was no exception. 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, held the Chiefs to 1-9 and 3rd down, didn't let them run a play in the red zone. And they're the healthiest team in the NFL. And that's important. Very, very, very important. Sean Payton has been very good against the spread on the road in his career. He's 83-61-3 against the spread on the road as a just against the spread on the road. He's 33-17-1 against the spread since 2018. That's the best of any coach in the NFL over that time period. But it changes in the playoffs. In his coaching career, he's 7-10 against the spread in the playoffs. But it's as a favorite that he has struggled. 3-9 against the spread as a favorite, where he's 4-1 against the spread as an underdog. He's only been a 6-point dog or higher once in his whole life in the playoffs. That was 2014 against the Seahawks. Closed at +10. He covered. They lost it by 8. As an underdog in the wild card and divisional round, Peyton's 3-0 against the spread. And if he covers here, he would join Doug Peterson, Tom Coughlin, and Rex Ryan to go 4-0 against the spread or better as a dog in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs in the last 20 years. Take it away for us, Troy, the Denver Broncos.
The Broncos are a really tough team. This entire game was really tough for me. One of the more difficult handicaps on this slate. Because Bo Nix, I mean, this is a guy with the Broncos who's outperformed expectations by a wide margin. He's pretty much did it all season long. But then again, you've got a rookie on the road in his first playoff game. And it reminds me of Stroud last season with a very similar number, when he was going into Baltimore for a game of this caliber. And then our good old friend Gary Payton is a genius in his development of Bo. I mean, feet to the fire early and often, putting him in situations that you put veteran QBs in right out of the gate, weeks 1 and 2 in close games. He was putting this guy 3rd and short, 2nd and short, play action, throwing the ball downfield. It's been pretty damn impressive. But the one way you defend, and the one way you've been able to defend Bo Nix successfully this year is being able to defend the short passing game. Unfortunately, the Bills do not do that well. It's kind of their bend but don't break style of defense, which is broken quite frequently recently. And the Broncos. I mean, we talked about this before we came on earlier today. I wanted to fade the Broncos like for how many weeks now? And now we just seen them smack KC 38-0. We know Spagnuolo didn't challenge Bo Nix at all in that game. The KC offense was clearly not trying. They were trying to close that game out as fast as possible. No urgency. They were milking the clock while they were down, multiple scores. They ran the least amount of plays that they have under Andy Reid in his tenure, and only 90 yards of offense. But that was just a despicable performance, and that's a performance that we would like to fade a team like the Broncos on the road with a rookie quarterback. But I think that it might be a little bit different with Bo Nix and how they've developed him and how they pulled him along. And then again, we got the Bills defense on the other side, so I can't wait to get into that.
Let's get into it. The Bills passing offense, 9th in the league, 227.9 yards per game. Rushing offense, 9th in the league, 131.2 yards per game. Red zone offense, 2nd in the league, scoring touchdowns 71.6% of the time. Third down offense, 7th in the league, converting 44.1% of the time. Their passing defense can be a vulnerability, not quite as big as their third down defense. 4th worst in the league, allowing conversions 43.8% of the time. Passing defense, 24th, allowing 226.1 yards per game through the air. Rushing defense, 12th, 115.5 yards per game. But they were at quite, a bunch of these games they were way ahead, and teams were just throwing against them. The red zone defense, 16th in the league, allowing touchdowns 57.4% of the time in there. They get 2.3 sacks per game. That's good for 18th in the league. Coming off that 23-16 loss to New England, Josh Allen took the first snap to continue his Iron Man streak, and then Trubisky and White finished it off. Trubisky 15-21 for 101 yards, a touchdown. Curtis Samuel caught 7 for 52. Ray Davis ran 15 times for 64 yards. James Cook rushed for his 16th touchdown of the season to OJ, then sat the rest of the game. The offense was 7-19 on 3rd and 4th down, and 2 of 2 in the red zone. The defense allowed the Patriots to go 5 of 13 on 3rd down, but held them to 1 of 3 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 1 sack and 4 quarterback hits, but the defense has been a real problem. Their pass defense is 30th in EPA per drop back, and dead last, 32nd in drop back success rate. Now that's since week 9. So, but that is trouble. At home as a favorite of over a touchdown or more, minus 7.5 or more. Josh Allen's 13-9-2 against the spread. He's 23-1 straight up. But in his playoff career, he's just 3-7 against the spread. And this has nothing to do with the Chiefs game at all. Like I'm with Nut Flush. I mean, I don't care. I put a line through that game. I don't care about that game. I just believe that the Broncos are good enough and their coach is shrewd enough to make this a football game. And I think it'll be a football game that the Bills will win. And I think the Broncos can cover. And I moved them on them at plus 8.5. And I don't think it ends up at 8.5. I think we see this at 8 or 7.5 come kickoff. Now, I could be wrong. But my only side that I bet thus far, the Denver Broncos. Talk to us about the Bills, my man.
Yeah, I want to go straight to the defense with the Bills. We know the offense is prolific. We know Josh Allen is MVP caliber now. And he might win it, but unfortunately, after getting into the numbers more over here the past few weeks, Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. But I don't want to take away from this offense. They've been great. They got pieces, their slot receiver. His name is escaping me right now because I want to call him Wes Welker because that's what he reminds me of, his ability to work in the slot. Rookie Keon Coleman, obviously, Cook in the backfield. Josh Allen's ability to run and create with his mobility. The offense is incredible. But when you flip it and you look at this Bills defense, I mean, they grade out as 27th overall defense in the NFL per PFF. Their front seven is extremely small. I've talked about this numerous times. They could be easily pushed around by competent offensive lines, which is what we have here. Look what happened versus the Lions and the Ravens. What happened to this Bills team? The Broncos' offensive line is top 10 in both pass block and run block. Number 1 overall in pass block. Look at the win rates. They're top 5. And this is a defense. This Bills defense is terrible on third down. This is the bend but don't break mentality. And I think that the Broncos are very live against this defense. They only have one player in the secondary that grades out above average, and it's very clear who that is. Milano. He used to be incredible in coverage, one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. I've actually touted him many times when they were playing the Dolphins, and why the Bills were so successful against the Dolphins defensively historically is because he was a great in coverage. His grade this year per PFF is a 40, and if you watch him on film, he's Swiss cheese. He's a turnstile out there. And, the problem with the whole cap for me came down to, do I trust Bo Nix against this defense to be able to put up points? Is he going to look like a rookie? And you go back through some of the caps I put together with this team in the past, and I've talked a lot of shit about them. I was considering an over because I was like, this Broncos defense, I'm lower than the market on this Broncos defense. Everyone thinks this defense is elite, and I'm not sure I was necessarily there. They definitely have some good traits of a good defense, but elite defense is how they were being talked about in the market. But the whole cap came down to me was, can a rookie quarterback perform on the road? And I go back to Peyton's ability to develop him. I talked about it since week 2. Since week 2, I've been talking about this. They put him in the situations. I think he's going to be ready as a rookie quarterback can be in this spot. And they got a weak defense that they get to go against. I think this is a weak defense. I think they could find some success on the ground and through the air, and definitely in play action situations. It's going to be, can the rookie quarterback convert in the red zone? And I think they can. I do. So instead of moving on the over, I did, and I'm still considering the over. I moved on the Broncos +9, -110. And I agree with you. And if you look at the history of this market, you don't see, I'm talking about divisional games, or, I'm talking about games in the regular season. If you remove the divisional quality, if you remove the divisional filter, so you're looking at non-divisional games in this price range, they only move one way pretty much. I mean, it's like 75% of the time it's moving towards the Broncos, which is another reason I love the 9, because, and then a lot of times, the book that, we both use, Jim, you look at the sharpest books. If you can get a better number than is being offered at that book currently, it's probably a good bet. So that's what I did. I moved on the 9, and I'm considering the over.
+9 at -110. I got 8.5 at -109. And it's going to be a fun football game. The 29 Fahrenheit snow showers, 11-mile-per-hour winds. Does that not? No, I'm not. I lean to the under, but it's pretty easy to talk about the defense of the Bills, and even what Nutflush is saying that if you have any thoughts on betting the Broncos, you are suggesting they score because you are not slowing down the Bills' offense. The weather, you don't think that affects? Or do you think that because the weather is the way it is, we have a 47 instead of 49.5 or 50?
I do. I think we would see a 50 if it wasn't for the weather. And that's also why I don't trust the total right now. And I didn't want to bet it because I fell into the trap last week with the under in the New England Patriots and the Bills. This team right here, I was on the under. I never knew a guy who's never played quarterback in the NFL come out and look like Jesus Christ himself, throwing the rock around the field. But I trusted the weather to be a certain way. It wasn't that way, and I don't want to get into it at this point in the week with totals. The only total I bet is obviously in the game where we're going to be indoors. We know it's going to be clean. I got in trouble a few times this year, and I've had a tough season with totals in general.
Both Troy and I are on the Denver Broncos. He got the 9. I got the 8.5.
Yeah, you can make a case that they'd be able to stop the Bills' offense in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you got Zach Allen, you got a very good pass rush. A very good pass rush for the Denver Broncos. And you got Cody Barton as a linebacker who I think is going to serve as a really good spy. And you got two ends. You got a very athletic defensive line. Nick Benito, I wish they listed his 40 time. I bet you it was pretty damn good. I think that they have a lot of pieces that, they have pieces that could defend the Bills. I mean, what the Bills have scored, 20 in the 20s twice, and the rest of the games have been in the 30s, right? Like the Texans held them to 20 and the Ravens held them to 10. Everyone else, they put up points. Like the Bills are going to get their points. I'm betting the Broncos, expecting that the Broncos are going to put up points as well.
We haven't even mentioned Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, I know. He's going to be obviously he is every bit as good as I thought he's hyped up to be. I wasn't that high on him coming into the season, to be honest, but he's showing out. He's absolutely showing out, man. I think that he's the least targeted corner in man coverage. I was looking at a number definitely on the season, but I think, looking back multiple years, like he's just a no-fly zone.
Very fun start to our Sunday AFC wildcard playoffs. Now, remember, NFL Pub Hub, not on Sunday, Saturday at noon, right after the starting 5 Dabby Cabs big new basketball show. Noon on Saturday will be NFL Pub Hub this week. Let's roll on. Next up for us, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, NFC Wild Card Playoffs. Green Bay Packers 11-6, 5-3 on the road. The Philadelphia Eagles 14-3, 8-1 at home. Here we have my second bet here, and that's it. I only have 2 bets that I'm coming to the show with. I'm on the under 46. I got in late, had to pay minus 120 for it. But I'm in on the under 46. Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 35 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 6 mile per hour winds. We have the Green Bay Packers right now, 4.5 across the board. Been a lot of movement in this game. Opened up at 4.5 at a pick'em. It moved to 5 yesterday morning. This was a 5 for a while. Then at 7:30 p.m., it dropped a point to a 4. There was a big move to a 4 at a pick'em. So that was at 7:36 p.m. on Monday night. That -4 at minus 106 has moved 16 cents in the Eagles' direction. They're now at -4 at minus 122. It's interesting because I capped this game, quite a bit earlier today. Earlier today, this was -4 for the Eagles at minus 109. So there's been quite a big move since then. The total is at 45.5. It's minus 111 to the under. 365 moved this to 45 flat. It kind of forced my hand a little bit as to what book to bet it on. Now, I could have got the 46 here as well at minus 122, so I wasn't saving that much money. When we get to the cash flow here, we have 83% of tickets and 79% of cash on the over. On the spread, we have 34% of tickets and 43% of cash on the Green Bay Packers. Start with the Packers. Their passing offense is 12th in the league, 223.6 yards per game, while their rushing offense is 5th, 146.8 yards per game. Red zone offense, 10th. They score touchdowns 59.4% of the time. Their third down offense, 15th. They convert 39.5% of the time. Their passing defense allows 215.2 yards per game, which isn't bad. Their rush defense, 7th, allowing 99.4 yards per game on the ground. Their red zone defense is 20th. They allow touchdowns 60% of the time. And their third down defense is 12th, allow conversions 37.5% of the time. And they're 8th in sacks. They get 2.6 per game. They roll into the playoffs off their second straight loss, 24-22 at home to the Bears. Packers outgained the Bears 367 to 224 in that loss. Jordan Love left in the second quarter when he lost feeling in his throwing hand. LaFleur said that he could have returned to the game if necessary. He's expected to be limited at practice this week. To make matters worse, earlier on that same drive, Christian Watson, they lost to a season-ending torn ACL. It's a big loss for them. He's a real danger over the top. So now, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. Doubs missed the game with a sickness, but he's fine. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and Dontavian Wicks. Then you have Malik Heath, who had a great game, and Bo Melton underneath 4 and 5 depth contributors. Malik Willis came in and went 10 of 13 for 136 yards. Heath led receivers with 3 catches for 53 yards. Emmanuel Wilson ran 14 times for 73 yards and a touchdown. Chris Brooks ran 8 for 59. RB1 Josh Jacobs ran 6 times for 44 yards and a touchdown before he was rested. The offense was 3 of 10 on third down, 1 of 3 in the red zone. The defense wasn't completely locked in. They allowed the Bears to go 8 of 15 on third and fourth down and score in their only red zone appearance. Pass rush was quiet. 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits. Xavier McKinney had an interception. LaFleur has a very profitable angle in this situation. He's got a bunch of them, and some against them. But LaFleur is 27-12 straight up and 25-14 against the spread when facing an opponent after losing to them in the previous matchup. Look, we know he's a very good coach. When he is a road underdog in a revenge spot, 9-2 against the spread. Very impressive. In that spot, a road dog in a revenge spot, he's covered in 7 straight games. A road dog in a revenge spot, 7-4 straight up. In his career as an underdog, LaFleur is 23-12 against the spread, catching 65.7% of the time. So look, we know that LaFleur is a hell of a coach. We know that you could say, at least head coaching wise, that the Packers have an advantage. But Green Bay has struggled against the best teams in the league. 0-5 this year against teams with 12 or more wins. Take it away, Troy. We start with the Green Bay Packers.
I personally concerned. I think they're in some real trouble. I think you brought up the most key point last week with what happens when no Watson's on the field and his ability to stretch either zone, be it man coverage, be it a safety over the top. Without him out there, this offense is much less capable of any type of explosive plays. The safeties could play a little closer. The zone coverages could play a little tighter. With no Watson to stretch the field, and credit to you, Jimmy, for bringing this up. It really rang true, especially when you've seen him go down early against the Bears and what they were able to do. And I know Malik Willis was in there, but Jordan Love, I'm telling you, man, if this guy isn't fully healthy, and I know we've seen some reports that he is, but he's going to be playing, so he's not going to be reporting, oh yeah, woe is me. Obviously, they want to play a certain, play their cards a certain way to try to throw off the defense to any way, shape, or form. Like, I totally believe LaFleur would do something of that nature. Last year, the Packers, they entered the playoffs as like the hottest team in the NFL. One of the best teams going into the playoffs. Definitely not the case this season. Losing 2 straight. 3 of their last 5. I've talked about their struggles on the road. And if you look at some of the advanced metrics on where Caleb Love, Jesus Christ, where Jordan Love is most efficient, it's in the deeper spots of the field, or it's in the really short spots of the field. If you take away the deep threat, he's going to be focusing. He could throw hash to hash. Jordan Love is a very good quarterback, and he has the arm strength and talent to do that. But when wasn't he able to do that this season is when he was a little beat up, coming back from injury. I don't think he's fully healthy, to be honest. I think he would have played the rest of that game. Obviously, the Packers are going to be a little bit beat up coming into this game. And I think it's gonna hurt them in the second half because of the trickle flood properties of this Eagles team, which I can't wait to talk about.
Yes, and let's get into the trickle flood, that term that you have created for the Philadelphia Eagles. By the way, Hurts is good to go. Yes, he hasn't cleared concussion protocols because you can't until Wednesday. If Sunday was week 1 of the wild card game, he would have been playing. So If your cap includes Jalen Hurts not at quarterback, I think you should, wait on that. Let's talk about these Eagles. Passing offense 29th in the league, 187.9 yards per game. Rushing offense second. They run for 179.3 yards per game. Red zone offense 13th. Score touchdowns 57.4% of the time. Third down offense 10th. They convert 41.7% of the time. Their passing defense allowed the least amount of yards in the NFL. Good God, look at these numbers that Fangio. What an expert. What a defensive.
He is
genius.
an expert. He is. I appreciate defensive side of the ball more. I mean, my heart is a defense. I played safety. I was a great defender in basketball. Watching film on Fangio, what he does to keep quarterbacks on their heels. I mean, I haven't seen better yet.
It's phenomenal. And I know this wasn't the story we were talking about when he was with the Fish, but he's been just look at these numbers. So they have the least amount of yards allowed. Remember, we saw what the secondary did last year. They got absolutely annihilated. It's the same dudes. It's the same guys. They're the third best third down defense in the league. They allow conversions 35.6% of the time. Their red zone defense is the fifth best in the league. They allow touchdowns 50% of the time. And their rush defense is 10th in the league, allowing 104.2 yards per game. The sacks, 13th in the league, 2.4 sacks per game. So they rest a slew of starters and another victory, 2013 at home over the Giants. Tanner McKee was 27-41 for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now he's got a job in the NFL for the rest of his life as a backup, wherever he wants. It was a great job by him. Dotson caught 7 passes for 94 yards. Dallas Goedert returned. Important to have. He'd missed 4 games. This is a boost that they'll have him and Calcaterra both healthy. Goddard had 4 catches for 55 yards in his return. Will Shipley led the ground game with 10 carries for 32 yards. The makeshift defense was strong throughout, shutting out the Giants in the first half. Held the Giants 4-14 on third down, 0-1 in the red zone. Pass rush was quiet, 0 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, but Sidney Brown had an interception. When Jalen Hurts goes up against good teams, he plays better. It's been a part of his history in the NFL. When he goes up against teams above 500 in his career, he's 14-7 against the spread.
And that goes back to prior to the Eagles becoming the Super Bowl contenders, Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, he steps up. We see him do that. Now, these are 2 elite defenses. Philadelphia, second fewest points per game, allowed 17.8. Green Bay allowed 6th fewest, 19.9. Look, I love the under. I don't just like it. Now, again, I stayed in my shoes. I'm not. If I bet 1 unit, it allows me to fire away live. I got to keep telling myself, no matter how exciting these games are, that's just another football game. But when you hear the sharps on the Packers, and it always comes down to this angle that we hear over and over again. The Eagles played the second easiest schedule per PFF in the league, and the Packers played the 5th hardest. And they go back to that often. And maybe it's worth going back to. Take it away for us, Troy. You've already given out the Ravens-Eagles moneyline parlay. Any more action for you here?
Well, let's talk about the market a little bit. Actually, I'll just let me briefly touch on remind me to talk about the market and how the Eagles. You talk about their strength of schedule. I mean, what they've done against good teams has been fairly impressive, if you ask me. They smack up the Ravens. They smack up the Bengals. They smacked up all the playoff teams when Jalen Hurts was the quarterback. And I don't know how much I'm buying into that necessarily. But yeah, the Eagles, this has been my horse all season long. I mean, they put so much money into my pocket as a favorite this year. Obviously, we have the futures. This team definitely is another team. I alluded to it when I was talking about the Ravens, has all the pieces to win the Super Bowl. Absolutely dominant in the trenches. Offensive line, top 6 in both pass block and run block. And the D-line, top 2 in both run D and pass rush. Like I talk about the trickle flood properties, and there's where it's at. The more this offensive and defensive line leans on you, the more dangerous they become. And they just come – seems like they get stronger as the game goes on, while the offensive line and the defensive line of the opposing teams start to lapse. The defensive coordinator situation, I mean, the scheme that he's put together to fit the personnel is what's really impressive. And actually, that's the one thing that's changed, in my opinion, from these two teams that played in week one that were at full strength on a neutral field. Fangio's defense has come such a long way since that game. It takes weeks, months to install the complex scheme Fangio runs, the cross match. It's not easy to do, right? So, linebacker, N'Kobe Dean, when you're playing a cross match zone, when a player crosses your face, you pick him up, it becomes man coverage. So you have to kind of anticipate that and be able to get your head to your keys when you see it's not a running play. The same thing goes for the safety, cross match. Safeties and man coverage on receivers on the opposite side of the field, things of that nature. That's what the cross match. Safeties that are manning up, if anybody crosses the center, anybody crosses midfield, boom, it turns into man coverage. It's extremely confusing to play against, and you've seen that. You've seen that this season, and I'm not sure why it didn't work. I think, maybe it's the slot cornerback, looking back to last year with the Dolphins, why it didn't work out so well is because the linebackers, Braun and N'Kobe Dean, I can't believe it. I was talking so much shit about him early in the season. He's been incredible. And you got DeJean in the slot corners, a stud, which is what you need if you want to run this type of scheme. And he's put it together. In the quarterback situation, like I know I think we're both very high on Jalen Hurts. I think he's a gamer. I think everything I've heard and seen as he's made his way from college to the NFL has just been a guy that I think is a guy you want to back, a guy that wants to win. And he's a passer that I think, one of the best numbers you could look at in terms of like EPA per, when you're in the passing game is quarterbacks who are really good at operating in the middle intermediate portions of the field where defenses are most vulnerable. And it's a lot against zone coverage because of the Tampa, they're not the Tampa 2, the cloud flats from the cornerbacks. That's the soft part of zone coverage, and he operates so well in that part of the field. So I think if the Eagles stay healthy, I think they have the path to the Super Bowl and, through the NFC into the Super Bowl. And I like them to make a run. So I moved on the Eagles and Ravens money line. I don't know if I want to take a spread. The Ravens game will be popping off first. So obviously, that's what I love about these slots too, is you get to see what happens. So if you still want action on the Eagles, you have a money line parlay. If the Ravens lose, which I shouldn't even put that juju out there, I do not believe they will at all. So we'll be sitting with a Eagles money line ticket come game time.
I love it. I love the breakdown. Did you get to the market stuff that you wanted to hit?
No, I didn't. But this is, you were talking about the sharps on the other side. I mean, this is very, very, this is common in this market. Home teams that open between 4 and 5, line moves towards the road team. I've talked about this, playing this trend all season. It's the sharp trap. I played it with both the Eagles and the Lions multiple times this season. So home teams that open between -4 and -5 with the market moving towards the road team, but they still close above 3. So, right, I don't want to see it get down to that hard 3. What happens in those spots? The home team is 17-6 ATS.
Wow.
They're playing that the entire season. And just like in the regular season, the line movement in this range in the playoffs is 1-3 ATS. I only have 2 years of data, so there's not a lot of teams opening at this range. Actually, home teams that open at -4.5 are 15-3 ATS, 16-3 straight up. This is just a range where this is a market that I like to back too. So I'm not afraid to take a spread, I don't think, or maybe a double result. I don't know exactly how I'm going to play it, but you brought up a point that's keeping me off the double result. With we want the trickle flood to take effect in the second half, and that's so yeah. I'm looking towards the Eagles in this spot, and I agree with the under, because what happens when the Eagles get the ball and they have the lead? I mean, some teams put their foot on your throat. People do it in different ways. The Eagles do it by just milking that clock, grinding out first down, second down, third down, tush push, first down, second down, tush push. Like it's a very, very dominant form of football the Eagles play in the second half, and the clock just ticks. So I do agree with the under.
And I cemented, I do not want the double result. I want 60 minutes The double result of getting offered even money. I looked at the Ravens double result, minus 188. Would that be like, could you use the Ravens double result also as a parlay piece with the Eagles? So you move Ravens money line, then Ravens double result, Eagles money line. Is that
right to get plus money?
Yeah,
I know that I trust it in the regular season. I dug through the sample, the 10-point line and the double result. That sample I've dug through game by game, and it's money in the bank in the regular season. But
I think that we should. I think that's our perfect opportunity to have more on the Ravens game, and it all will lead into the Eagles game.
We're probably getting a plus 130, right?
Yeah. Don't you think that's a nice way to add?
Yes, to add action.
Yeah,
but controlled action at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's an addition. I think I'm going to move on both of those parlays because remember I already said that I was going to need to put a little more than a unit on the Eagles Ravens money line parlay. Well, now I don't. Now I have another chance for a bigger score if I just put another unit on the double result with the Eagles money line.
Yeah, I'm seeing Ravens minus 190 with you get a plus 120. I'm with it.
Okay,
I'm with it.
All right. Let's roll on. That is the Packers Eagles. I'm on the under 46. We've already heard Troy on the Eagles Ravens money line. That was a bet. I wanted him to announce it, because I didn't want to put out and get any credit because I think it's a very excellent look. And then I'm going to add the Ravens double result to the Eagles money line. Let's roll on. Now we have our Sunday nighter right here on Pub Sports Radio. 8 p.m. Eastern, the NFC wild card playoffs. The Washington Commanders 12-5, 5-3 on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 12. Oh, I did that. Sorry, I screwed up the records there. I guess I copied and pasted the Commanders record twice. But we know the Buccaneers record 10-7. I'm not sure exactly what they were at home. Troy can give us that. We're Raymond James Stadium, a little colder than usual, 52 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 5 mile per hour winds. So let's roll. Wager Text says if you like the Eagles minus 4.5, then you like the under in that game. That is exactly what Troy told me. If I like the under, it sets up for the Eagles. So that was what he told me when I sent him that I was in on that under. So that makes sense. But let's go to Commanders Buccaneers. This is a fun one. A lot of cappers on either side of the fence here, except for the total, where I've seen a lot of cappers backing the over. This one I really wanted to talk about. Let's start with that total. It's at 50.5. It opened at 50.5, minus 109 to the under. It's now minus 117 to the under. We had a 7-cent move towards the under this today at 10 to 4 in the afternoon, 10 to 4 p.m., 3:50 p.m. Eastern. Let's get to the spread history here for this one. From a spread perspective, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -3 at minus 104. They opened up at -3 at minus 114. We've had a 10-cent move towards the Buccaneers. That may surprise some of you who've been watching the market here because that happened at 6 p.m. tonight. At 6 p.m. tonight, the Commanders went from +3 at plus 102 to +3 at minus 108 in one swift move. The Bucs went from -3 at minus 115 to -3 at minus 104. So we now have had a real legit dime move towards the Commanders. Let's take a look at the cash flow here for this one. 74% of the tickets and 86% of cash is on the Commanders. Far more than I had expected. On a total scenario, 24% of tickets, 21% of the cash is on the under, and we've seen it juiced towards the under at 50.5. Nutflush Island looking at Daniel's rush prop. He says it's 49.5. He says book it now. Let's talk about the Commanders' passing offense, 17th in the league at 215.6 yards per game, while their rushing offense is third. They run for 154.1 yards per game. The red zone offense is 6th in the league. They score touchdowns 63.4% of the time, while their third down offense is 6th. They convert 45.6% of the time. Their offense is very good, and Jaden Daniels is a seasoned pro back there. he's got a calm about him, especially when he's running with the ball on third down. He's very, very good young quarterback. Passing defense is third in the league. They allow 189.5 yards per game. Now, here's the Achilles heel of this defense. They are the third worst defense in yards allowed on the ground, 137.5 yards per game. So a lot of cappers think Bucky Irving is going to get a ton of run on Sunday night. The red zone defense is 22nd. They allow touchdowns 60.4% of the time. Their third down defense is 15th. They allow conversions 38.2% of the time. And their sacks, they improved a ton in the second half of the year. They ended up 11th in the league with 2.5 sacks per game. This Commanders team has not won a playoff game in 19 years. It's the third longest active drought behind the Dolphins and the Raiders. And the last time they did, Troy, 19 years ago, was when they went out on the road to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida. It's a rematch of Tampa Bay's 37-20 victory over Washington in Week 1. That's when we thought the Commanders, were a team that wasn't going to make the playoffs. Certainly wasn't going to finish 12-5. Commanders, they played much better than we expected, clearly, after that 37-20 loss. They're coming off their fourth straight win, 23-19 victory at Dallas. They were outgained by Dallas, 378-269, but Marcus Mariota played the bulk of the game. The Commanders are in the playoffs for the first time since 2020. They're in the playoffs with a winning record for the first time since 2015. Mariota looked pretty good, 15 of 18 for 161 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran 5 times for 56 yards and a touchdown. Scary Terry had 8 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. And the running game struggled again despite the return of Austin Eckler. He'd been gone since that concussion he suffered on November 24th. The quarterbacks look good running the ball. But Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. combined for 22 yards on 8 carries. But this offense is strong, 4th in EPA per play. The defense bent but didn't break in this football game. 7 of 14 on 3rd and 4th down, but 3 of 3 in the red zone. Sorry that I've screwed those stats up. I misput them. So the Cowboys were 8 of 19 on 3rd and 4th down. Because I'm talking about the defense. They held the Cowboys to 1 of 6 in the red zone. It was the Commanders' offense that was 7 of 14 on 3rd and 4th down and perfect 3 for 3 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 2 sacks and 2 quarterback hits. Let's talk Commanders here, Troy. Take it away.
A lot of the issues that I've had with this Commanders team are comparable to the issues I had with Pittsburgh. I mean, first of all, this Commanders team, second easiest strength of schedule in the NFL. This team coming off a 5-game win streak. They beat the Cowboys, got outgained. Could have easily lost that game. I know Jane Daniels didn't play. The Falcons could have down 17-7 at half. Game went to overtime. They won the toss. Another game they could have easily lost. The Eagles game, no Jalen Hurts. I don't know how much we want to take that. They could have obviously very easily lost that game, down 13 points in the fourth quarter. The Saints, they nearly escaped, obviously, with the 2-point conversion. The only true win that they've had in these 5 games is against the Titans. And everyone's smacking the Titans. The Commanders, 0-4 versus playoff teams. The offensive metrics, like the Steelers, are rooted in third down EPA. Well, here, a lot of the points they put up, a lot of the EPA generated is on 4th down with Jaden Daniels using his legs. And unlike what you want to do with Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback, you want to defend the short passing game. With Jane Daniels, you want to force him to throw the ball underneath. I feel like he struggles to make those throws and to make those reads. He keeps his eyes up downfield for so long, which, that's a sign of a great quarterback, right? He's trying to get the chunk plays, but it kind of reminds me of Stroud from last year, who was putting up the best passer rating in the NFL from the intermediate to deep passing game. And so was Jane Daniels this year. He's been really impressive. I feel like without his mobility, we could take so many points off the board on 4th down. If 4th down results were inverse, you could take 50 to 60 points off of this team's total points accumulated over the course of the season. And this offensive line, this is the problem with this offense and why I don't like the back. It's because the offensive line is incapable of generating large line yards in the traditional run game. Now, Jane Daniels has masked a lot of that with his ability to move within and out of the pocket. And the coach has unwaverable trust in him, which, there's a lot to like about the offense. I can't even lie. But the offensive line, incapable of generating any line yards, both bottom 10 in both pass block and run block. And a defense, for this Commanders team that I think is extremely vulnerable in almost every aspect. I mean, versus top offenses in the NFL this season, the Eagles, 33 and 26 points, one of those games with 3/4 of, Pickett. Ravens dropped 30, Bengals 33, Bucs 37. The run D's graded out as 29th in the NFL, and the coverage is 27th in the NFL. I feel like this defense is way more vulnerable given the matchup in this spot than the vice versa.
It's a very tough offense they're going up against. Buccaneers passing offense, 3rd in the league with 250.4 yards per game. We know Rachaad White's ceiling. 4th round pick, Bucky Irving out of Oregon, changed everything for this offense in my estimation. They're 4th in the league, running for 149.2 yards per game. Their red zone offense, 4th in the league, scoring touchdowns 66.7% of the time. Their 3rd down offense, the best in the NFL, converting 50.9% of the time. You'll look where they get hurt, the Buccaneers, it's their pass defense, 29th in the league. You look at where the Commanders hurt you, it's on the ground, running with the quarterback, because Robinson hasn't been looking good for a while, and Eckler really, to me, is only dangerous catching the ball, out on the flats. The rush defense is the 4th best in the league. They allow 97.8 yards per game. They got big Vita Vea sitting there in the middle of that defense, waiting for you to run. Red zone defense, 14th league, 54.4%. 3rd down defense, 14th at 38.1%. They're 6th in the league in sacks, 2.7 a game. They clinched the NFC South crown and the 3rd seed in the NFC with their 27-19 victory at home over the Saints. The Bucs had been 0-6 this year when they didn't score first until this victory. Interesting enough, too, is that Baker Mayfield was 0-43 when he was down by 10 points at one point in the football game. And he came back. First time he did that. Mayfield, 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. Evans, 9 catches for 89 yards. Caught that 9-yard pass on the final play to surpass 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season, tying Jerry Rice for the most ever. Jalen McMillan had 5 for 74 and a touchdown. Bucky ran 19 times for 89 yards and a touchdown. The offense was 11-17 on 3rd and 4th down, 2 of 3 in the red zone. The defense was decent, I guess, against the weak Saints offense. Held them to 3 of 13 on 3rd down, 1 of 2 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. There are real problems, though. And if there weren't these problems here, I'd already be on the Buccaneers. The pass rush, as I said, 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits. But Antoine Winfield with a knee injury, Cade Otton with a knee injury, Jamel Dean with a knee injury, all inactive. Then Jordan Whitehead gets in this car accident. So you're already dealing with issues in the secondary, and then you lose a safety in Whitehead. It's a neck-related injury. It's not considered a long-term problem. He's being placed on the reserve non-football injury list, and his season's over. It's a big loss because Antoine Winfield's missed 8 games this year. He's missed 4 straight. So you have Mike Edwards and Kayvon Merriweather who've been handling the safety duties, but that was Edwards, Merriweather, and Whitehead. Tampa Bay has allowed the 7th most passing plays of 20-plus yards. Now, are we afraid that the Commanders can beat you over the top? Because if your answer is no, well, then you can still bet the Buccaneers. And maybe the answer is no. The over-under, and I know a lot of you guys are talking about it in the chat, it's the highest of Wild Card Weekend, 50.5 or 50, depending on where you shop. So split up the indoor and outdoor games. I think it's important to do that. There have been 37 outdoor games here since 2003. And it's 21, 14, and 2 to the under outdoors. I know the public's all over the over. It's moved towards the under juice-wise. I don't want the over here. Too high, too important of a game outdoors. I don't want it. Now, I know the public's going to be all over it. I don't want it. Take it away for us, Troy, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I think this Bucs team in this matchup is the much more legitimate team. I think they're also the team that has the ability to actually threaten other teams in the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, we've talked about him every week. This guy resurrected his career. He continues to flourish. You love to see a story like this, and he's having the best season of his career. I mean, yards per attempt, touchdowns, completion percentage, whatever metric you want to look at, this guy's having the best season of his career. And it's behind an offensive line that's doing the right things. I mean, second in pass block rate per PFF, 15th in run block, top 10 in both pass block and run block win rate. And what that does is it mobilizes the best element, the most threatening element of the Commanders' defense, which is their pass rush. Mike Evans, Bucky Irving, Cade Otton, the rookie, McMillan. I think that's enough threats offensively to go up against this weak Commanders defense, and just defense versus defense, because the Bucs, that's their, that's the thorn in their side is their defense. But it grades out significantly better than the Commanders. You talked about Vita Vea being able to wreak havoc on the interior front, basically taking any inside zone gap concept out of the playbook completely. That's how much of a stud he is against the run. You got McCollum on the edge, who's been an incredible man-to-man defender. I think, they leave McCollum on an island with McLaurin, say, if you want to beat us, let's go. Let's go best on best. And I think McCollum is going to be able to get the best of that matchup. We've seen him match up with great receivers all season long and do very good, grade out very well. And what that does is leaving him on an island is it allows you to play single high or cover zero against a team like the Commanders. It allows you to blitz and spy Daniels, and they have plenty of options to spy Daniels and ways you could do it. Like, I feel like Todd Bowles against a rookie quarterback, there's a lot of options that you could do. I mean, you can maybe calm down on the blitz, but you have three guys that can potentially key the quarterback. Levante David, who maybe he's a step slow, but he's faster on the linebacker scale. He's above average in terms of speed and athleticism. Tyke Smith, who's just, right. He's going to be a star in this league. I personally feel like he's probably the second best defender, or will be the second best defender on this lineup. He's a slot corner. And Yaya Diaby, who's a very athletic end. I think that you could do a lot of things. You could blitz Smith. They like to blitz, and Smith is the guy they like to send at the quarterback. You could blitz Smith, which he's done 57 times this season. You could spy Diaby on the other side of the ball. You could spy Levante David. But I think you're going to see a lot of blitz, a lot of spy, and daring Jane Daniels to attack deep. Man, I'm still getting over this sickness. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. I apologize. I believe that Daniels is going to find a way to put points up on the board. What he's able to do, mobility in the pocket, I mean, it's undeniable. But at the same time, you got a rookie quarterback on the road, a veteran defensive coordinator with pieces that I think match up well. Public is all over the Commanders. I'm on the Bucs, -3.
Do you think, and I'm sure you've looked into it, that I can't get in. I know tomorrow's injury report's a big one on Wednesday, but is there a chance that Winfield is back? Is there a chance that Jamal Dean is back? Is there a chance that they can fortify the secondary at all?
I mean, I read some things. They need Winfield back. I read some things that gave me some confidence that there's a higher chance than I originally expected coming into the handicap that he would be in.
All I need is really one of them here. Nutflush says, telling you guys right now, Washington will have picked that. Washington would have picked apart the Saints, and see the Bucs had no answer for the short passes. It was chewing up the Bucs.
What did they do against the Cowboys defense? Even when he was in there, I mean, Jane Daniels had one of his worst showings at quarterback. I know he only had only had 4 attempts, but he had his lowest grade of the season in those 4 attempts.
Troy, moving on the Buccaneers. I have interest in the
Buccaneers. Wait. What did he do against New Orleans? Yeah, he didn't do that very good versus New Orleans.
No, they barely won that game 20-19, right?
Yeah.
-3,
-1. He had 12 attempts, 50% completions, 3.2 yards per attempt against Dallas. Against New Orleans, 80% completion, 7.3 yards per attempt, but a lot of bad coaching. I feel like something was wrong offensively with them that game. I watched that game because I had the Commanders on a money line parlay. but it wasn't like they were very impressive versus the Saints defense.
Before we move on, Troy, did you have any interest in the total at 50.5 or 50?
I think any total over 50 is only a one-way bet for me.
Especially in the playoffs.
Especially in the playoffs.
Troy on the Buccaneers -3. I've not moved on this one yet. Let's roll on. Our Monday Nighter. Join us right here on Pub Sports Radio. I can't wait to host it. NFC wildcard. Minnesota Vikings 14-3, 6-2 on the road to the LA Rams, 10-7, 5-4 at home, SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Let's get into the line history here for this one. We've seen a nonstop move towards the Rams. And at this point, they will likely be favorites probably in about, 24 hours or 36 hours. From a spread perspective, you see some pick'ems on the board now. This opened up with the Rams plus 2.5 at -109. It's just a move towards them, constant move towards them. From a money line perspective here, the Rams are plus 102 right now. They opened up at plus 120. So, I mean, if you were to decide to go on the Rams now, it's not like, you'd be costing yourself that much money. From a total standpoint here, we have a 47, -108 to the over. It opened -106 to the over. There's been 2 cents of movement towards the over. We get to the cash flow. Here, we have 82% of tickets, 90% of the cash on the over. On the spread, we have 63% of tickets, 66% of cash on the Vikings. So it's, real sharp action moving this. On the money line, you have 76% of tickets and 92% of the cash on the Vikings. I didn't realize it was that dramatic. Let's talk about the Vikings' first passing offense, 6th in the league, 237.8 yards per game, rushing offense, 19th. They pick up 109.1 yards per game on the ground. Red zone offense, 19th. Score touchdowns 55.7% of the time, while their third down offense is 12th. They convert 40% of the time. Their passing defense, 28th in the league. They allow 242 yards per game through the air. It's been an issue all year. A lot of these teams, like the Ravens, like the Bucs, that are giving up a lot of yards through the air, they don't give much up on the ground. This team is 2nd in the league, allowing 93.4 yards per game on the ground. Red zone defense, 18th in the league. They allow touchdowns 59.2% of the time, but their third down defense is 4th, allowing conversions just 35.6% of the time. And they're 4th in the league in sacks, 2.9 per game. This is a rematch of Week 8. LA beat the Vikings 30-20 in that one. Vikings had their 9-game winning streak snapped in disappointing fashion, losing 31-9 at Detroit to close out the season. You were all over the Lions in that one. Troy, excellent work. Over the last 20 years, 4 different teams have had a 7+ game winning streak snapped right before a playoff game. Those 4 teams are undefeated in the first round of the playoffs, 4-0 straight up. Instead of clinching the number 1 seed in the bye, they have to travel to LA to take on the Rams. Darnold had his worst game of the year, finishing 18 of 41 for 166 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. In a must-win game, this offense averaged 4.2 yards per play, 3 of 16 on 3rd and 4th down, 0 of 4 in the red zone. Justin Jefferson led receivers with 3 catches for 54 yards. Jordan Addison was nowhere to be found. 1 reception for 0 yards on 6 targets. Aaron Jones ran 10 times for 45 yards, caught 5 for 30. Cam Akers ran 6 times for 65 yards. The defense did not look good. Lions put up 394 yards and went a perfect 3 of 3 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 2 sacks and 6 quarterback hits. Ivan Pace and Harrison Smith had interceptions. And Patrick Jones still dealing with the knee injury. They were really hoping for the bye so that he would be available. Now, he might be available here. So we talked about LaFleur. We've talked about Peyton. We've talked about Tomlin. We've talked about some of these coaches that have very, very good records in certain situations. And O'Connell has a phenomenal record in 1-score games, which is an expectation here that it'll be a tight one. Minnesota is 26-9 straight up in 1-score games under O'Connell. That's 74% cash rate. This year, they're 9-1 in close games. Now, we also have what happens when a team plays the Lions. We put a line through that when there's more than 7 days off. We've seen teams play the Lions and look great the next week. if they have 10 days off or more than 7, but it's hurt teams when they've had less. Overall, teams after facing the Lions are 6-10 straight up and 4-12 against the spread. They're also not covering by an average of 8.8 points per game. Since 2023, teams that averaged 25 points per game on the season, coming off a 14-point game or less the week before. So I gave you some reasons why you might like Minnesota here, right? I gave you the 7+ game winning streak snap right before the playoffs. Those teams are 4-0 straight up. Listen to this one. Teams that average 25 points per game on the season, but are coming off a game where they scored 14 points or less, are 2-9 against the spread in the wild card round, failing to cover the spread by 9.4 points per game. Take it away, Troy. We start with the Minnesota Vikings.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Bringing some trends to the table in that last one. I thought that Vikings loss, against Detroit, was eye-opening, and I kind of expected it. And Dan Campbell, I just love the way he operates, man. He's a guy that on the blackjack table, he's splitting tens, he's doubling down on blackjack, just massive balls. I love what he does, man. And I thought it was eye-opening, but I was kind of expecting it. I've discussed looking to fade this team late in the season into the playoffs. Why is that? This team has the 7th easiest strength of schedule, despite being in the toughest division in all of football. You look at what their body of work on the road, because you get them out of that home field. That's a true home field advantage over there in Minnesota. What about on the road? Well, they did beat the Seahawks by 3 points. It's not a playoff team. They beat the Bears in overtime by 3 points. They beat the Titans in an underwhelming 10-point win, 23-13, I believe. The Jags, 12-7. The Rams, they lost by 10. I mean, you look at what they've done on the road this season, and it's truly not impressive. The first time they played against Green Bay this season when they got the dub, what's his name? Jordan Love was coming off that injury. And the second time around, I mean, they just jumped on him. And we've seen that Packers team, how good are they truly when they just go out the next week and lose to the Bears? Playing all their guys, too. I know Jordan Love came out of the game, but, Willis has been very capable quarterback. They've played 3 playoff teams this season. They're 2-3, but out of division, they're 0-1. It's this very team right here. And I think Sam Darnold is extremely flawed. I mean, you look at the film, very exploitable. He leads the NFL in percentage of dropbacks, where he targets the center of the field. He's at 52%. For comparison, that's 20% higher than Matt Stafford. Looks like I can't talk for more than 5 minutes without freaking coughing, but
Oh, you're doing great. It's unnoticeable.
I'm trying. One of the lowest EPAs when targeting the left side of the field, the lowest completion rate in the NFL targeting the left side of the field, lowest yards per attempt, and his yards per attempt targeting anywhere outside of the center of the field, outside the hashes where he can't operate. His EPA, his yards per attempt, drops by 15% and 26% respectively. As a defensive coordinator, you see these tendencies, they're easy to exploit. And I feel like you see a lot of times, you've seen Dan Campbell and the Lions defense avoid guarding the flats on the left side of the field, sometimes on the right side of the field. And I think that just plays a game with a quarterback like Darnold, who we've seen him struggle against pressure. We've seen him, and I think the Rams are a team that could generate pressure. And I think we should expect this team offensively to struggle in the playoffs. I mean, there's only so many times you could throw a 10 to 15-yard dig over the middle of the field to Justin Jefferson. It's just not going to happen, moving forward.
What I needed, because I had planned to be on the Rams against whoever was coming to town, was them not coming off the low of all lows. I find it so difficult to sell the Vikings this low. It's a one-way street for me. It's Rams or no bet. But I don't think I'm capable of selling the Vikings at their lowest point. I think at this point I'd rather stay off. But it's certainly Rams or no bet. And I'm leaning towards no bet at this point. Let's talk about these Rams. Passing offense, 10th in the league, 227.5 yards per game. Rushing offense, 24th, allow 103.8 yards per game. The red zone offense is 25th They only score touchdowns 52.4% of the time. I was waiting for those numbers to fix themselves when Puka and Cooper Kupp came back at week 8 or week 9. They never did. Third down offense, 24th in the league, converting 36.8% of the time. Their pass defense, 20th. They allow 222.8 yards per game. Their rush defense, 22nd, allowing 130 yards per game. The red zone defense being great all year, 5th in the league, 50% of the time they allow touchdowns. Their third down defense, 20th, allowing conversions 40.7% of the time. They only get 2.2 sacks per game. You know, if this was, if it wasn't Stafford and McVay, no, nobody would want the Rams. It's just that combination is exceptional. This will be the Rams' first home playoff game in 3 years. They rested their best players, still look decent in that 30-25 home loss to the Seahawks. They had won 5 straight and 9 of 11 since their bye week. Stafford, Puka, Cooper, Kyron, and 4 starting offensive linemen all sat. McVay even let Mike LaFleur call the Rams' plays. They still outgained the Seahawks 403 to 336. Garoppolo was 27 to 41 for 334 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. With all those players, the players I mentioned out, Whittingham led receivers with 3 catches for 86 yards. Demarcus Robinson had 3 for 72. And Ronnie Rivers led the ground game with 12 carries for 48 yards. The offense went 7 of 17 on 3rd and 4th down, 2 of 4 in the red zone, but the defense looked vulnerable at times. Now, although the defensive starters played, they limited the snaps. So you can excuse it here. The Seahawks were a perfect 3 for 3 in the red zone. Pass rush finished with 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. And unfortunately, Blake Corum broke his forearm ending the season. 207 yards in his rookie year. Stafford put up 279 passing yards, 4 touchdowns against Minnesota. This pass defense in week 8. Now, we've had Dennis Garcia saying Flores admitted they had no plan for Puka in the first meeting. It was a short week and they weren't expecting him to play. And then we go back to the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks as an underdog in the playoff stat. Now, we already used it for Russell Wilson, but let's use it again here. Super Bowl winning quarterbacks are 61, 24, and 2 against the spread as an underdog in the playoffs. 25 and 8 against the spread as a dog before they won their ring. And they're 36, 16, and 2, 69% afterwards. 4 and 14 against the spread since the 2018 playoffs are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks as dogs. Troy, your Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, there's a lot I could get into here, but obviously I like the Rams after what you just heard. You know, my dismay for the Vikings, my dismay for Sam Darnold, and what they've been able to do in 1-score games. What I think the Rams could do in this matchup is they could stop the run. They did that in the first matchup. I expect to see the same thing in this matchup. I don't know why I would expect anything else. Force our boy Sam Darnold into his unfavorable tendencies, the ones he doesn't want to be in, throwing the ball outside of the hashes. That's a big thing. And then obviously if you could get him to throw to the left side of the field where he's the worst quarterback in the NFL, that'd be even better. Let this top 10 pass rush get at Darnold. I mean, without blitzing. You don't need a blitz with this pass rush. I feel like you'd be able to put enough pressure without the blitz. And the Vikings are allowing pressure at the 6th highest rate in the league. And I believe the key to me is Stafford and McVay. They're going to put together a scheme. They've already seen Flores once. They're going to put together a scheme that's going to be, effective. And if you look at veteran quarterbacks versus this polarized scheme, they have not beat a veteran quarterback, a quarterback that's been in the year for 3 years or more as a starter. They have not beaten one in 2 seasons. They're 0-8 last season. I think they're 0-5 this season, or 0-3 this season. Every loss they've taken the past 2 seasons essentially have been versus veteran quarterbacks. It's because you get this polarized scheme, which is all blitz, or they're dropping 8 at the highest rate in the NFL. In the first matchup, look what Stafford did. 74% completion rate, 8.2 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, only 1 turnover-worthy play. And that actually made me think of another thing. This Vikings team has been extremely fortunate with their turnovers and their turnover margin. I mean, Sam Darnold threw 2 picks as well last game, just like Goff did. Unfortunately, the Lions dropped their picks. The Vikings didn't. I think that there's some room or some expectation. You know, I don't build it in too much for turnover regression. And I think that McVay, Stafford are going to have a plan. This line opened and started moving towards LA almost instantaneously. That's a great sign. Look last week. I mean, are we really how low is this team? I mean, they're just coming off one loss. We see the public aping in, can't get enough Vikings in their pocket at this number. Looks like a bargain. And last time the line closed 2.5 in LA, the same matchup. So I think the number is I don't think it's a buy low, sorry, a sell low situation on the Vikings. I think we have room to sell one last time this season. So I'm on the Rams. I got them +2, and I got the money line.
And what exactly was the vig on both of those? Rams +2 was what?
The money Rams +2 -110, Rams money line +110. So I mean, it nets out to basically a +100 play.
Yeah, I'm surprised that all of this is happening with 8% of the money line cash on the Rams. Aren't you?
I'm extremely surprised. And unlike the regular season, where these short home dogs have been unprofitable in the regular season, in the playoffs, home dogs of 3 or less the past 3 seasons, 4-1 ATS and straight up. The line movement is extremely accurate. This is the only segment of the data where the line movement is 100% accurate. And it was the Bucs and the Texans last year, and both those teams cashed.
So before you get me to bet, not get me, but before I move on the Rams here,
before you jump with,
yeah. Do you trust this Rams defense? Now, I know the Vikings offense isn't world beaters, but I mean, it's very easy to trust their offense to do the job, but do you trust their defense? And if you don't fully trust their defense, should we also be looking at an over in this one, which I don't like betting in McVay Stafford games ever. I almost never bet them, but talk to me about the Rams defense before we put a bow on this.
Yeah, the Rams defense, I have some concerns about. I definitely do, but I think the front seven is where I'm putting my faith, because if you as a defensive coordinator, and I know I'm not calling the plays, but if I was a coordinator, it would definitely be on the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion. If you're able to take away the run with 7 players, there's just so many things you could do to force him into what he doesn't want to do. I think it makes me think of the last 2 spots where I bet against this Vikings, I bet last week against this Vikings team. Like I bet against, the Steelers over the past few weeks. It's because once you put it on film, damn well, my guy McVay is in that same room as the defensive coordinator, watching film together, bringing up spots, talking about how to defend it, what's the best way to defend it. Because an offensive coordinator, I mean, as good as McVay, could definitely, lend a hand to the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see here.
Yeah, no, I guess the issue is just selling the Vikings so low, and I guess I should just move beyond it at this point.
It makes sense though with my comment on the market, and it was 2.5, and the Rams won outright. It makes sense that it would come down a little bit from that 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
It opened at 2.5, right? Did it open at 2.5?
Yeah, opened at 2.5.
2.5, and so it opened where it closed last, and now we've seen some steam early. It's almost like it sets up perfectly, in my opinion, the market.
Oh, you saw it well. That makes sense. Rams +2, Rams money line for Troy Torrance. That concludes the breakdowns of our 6 wild card games. Let's review action here for us. We start with Troy on the under 43.5 in Chargers Texans. I've been struggling with this, whether or not to bet that, for a while now, and it just keeps dropping, unfortunately. Then Troy has the Ravens Eagles money line parlay. I'm going to join them on that. I'm also going to take the Ravens double result and Eagles money line as a parlay. Then we have both Troy and I on the Denver Broncos. A few cappers in the chat that really like the Bills, think it's the best bet on the board. It's part of the fun. We don't have to agree with each other. We just want to get as much information as we can and talk angles with each other. But Troy and I are both on the Denver Broncos. He got a half point better line than me. And then there's a lot of talk of people saying the +9s, not offshore, But if I heard there's one at Caesars and things of that nature. Grab it if you can. I'm on the under 46 in Green Bay, Philadelphia, and we talked about using the Philadelphia money line with the Ravens money line and with the Ravens double result. I'm going to bet both of those this evening. And that was a Troy idea. Troy's on the Buccaneers -3. I haven't moved on the Commanders Buccaneers spot. And Troy's on the Rams +2 in the Rams money line. And there you have it. 2 hours on the dot. Unlike our usual shows, we'll have 6 games to break down again tomorrow. Again next week, which will be extremely enjoyable. Don't forget about our confidence pool. $50. It's really fun. There's 13 games in the playoffs. So, saying that there'll be 6. Yeah. 13 games in the playoffs. So you get 13 slots. So the one that it's just straight up. It's not against the spread. You can only use one number once. So if you use your number 13 for 13 points, it's your most confident spot. And then it goes down to 1. So it's between 1 and 13, and you use every slot. You'll have 1 left when it comes to Super Bowl time. It's $50 entry, and $3 are kept for the fees, the processing fees. So you won't find contests really, generally speaking, with that low of a takeout for the costs of signing up. So please sign up for our confidence pool. We had a good sign up last year in our first ever. So this is our second annual, and more people sign up, the more, we can do it each and every year. So please do that. Thank you everybody in the chat. You've given so much to us, to Troy and I, with your support, watching the breakdowns afterwards and supporting the individual cuts that Jose makes. It means the world to us. It gives us the opportunity to do this. So thank you so much. Nuke, Wager Detective, AOD, We Want Justice, Aaron Gaza, Dennis Garcia, Mike, Susie Easton, Nutflush Allen, Harold Williams, Action Jackson. What a great, great group. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. Dougie Wise, truly, truly, thank you. Jared TG, Blue Numbers. It's just a great, great group. Thomas Maggio, Nick, thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you to Jose, who works tirelessly behind the scenes. Dennis, hey, you got paid last year. You've shown well there. Thank you to Jose for all the hard work he does behind the scenes. Thank you, Jose, my friend. Betting with Bouquet tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Don't forget, finally, we have another UFC show. UFC is back in action. So Locker Room Podcast premieres in 58 minutes. Troy, can you please give us our final words and lead us into the future, my friend? And congratulations on what you did this year, because you showed so much character climbing out of that hole. It shows so much character to do that. And it's something that I know nobody wants to see a friend or a capper go, dig himself a hole, but watching his friend, your friend, or a capper climb out is one of the best things in the industry. And you did that with aplomb. So excellent work, my man. Can't wait to rock in the playoffs with you. Take us home, my man.
I appreciate it, man. I swear there was a few days after the action closed and I'm laying there. I'm like, I just wanted to fold up and fucking get under my blanket and just sit there and wallow. But when you have an edge, it's only so long before you're ready to just dive back in. I love doing this show with you. I'm trying to squeeze every last minute of football we have. We have a great week of football with the college football playoffs into the NFL playoffs. It's just, this is the best time of the year, in my opinion. And I'm going to be a little bit heartbroken when football's over. But Pub Sports Radio, I say it every week. I truly fucking mean it. This is the best damn community in the industry. It's the reason I'm here, man. It's the reason I'm here. And we all got one common goal, and it's to hit the fucking bookies over the head. So go out there in the wild card weekend, get your money in the college football playoffs, and let's get that cash.